Tonight, we're turning our attention toward one of the quietest relationships humans have ever formed with another creature. What does your cat actually feel when the world around them changes? And how do they carry it? For anyone who has loved a cat deeply and wondered, in a quiet moment, whether they've made their life harder without meaning to, the science here lands gently. What your cat holds in their body is closer to what you hold in yours than most of us have ever been told. Welcome to Sleepy Animal. Wherever you are right now, perhaps already settled, the room quiet, your body beginning to let go of the day, allow yourself this particular kind of stillness. We'll trace the cat's choosing through 100 relaxing facts. From their origins in the ancient wild, to the first fires they chose to sit beside, to the nervous system they carry into your home tonight. From the chemistry of purring, to the way a cat reads a room, to the quiet biology of what it means to be known. Close your eyes and breathe. You're where a warm weight has settled in the dark. Let your mind slow to it. And now we begin. A small wildcat sits at the edge of a human settlement, watching, not fleeing, not approaching, simply present, weighing the distance between what is familiar and what might be safe. This behavior, observed in the earliest known contact between cats and humans, approximately 10,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, is what researchers now believe began the entire relationship. It was not domestication. Humans did not capture cats and breed them for traits. The cats arrived. They assessed. And some of them moved closer. Grain stores attracted rodents. Rodents attracted wildcats. Humans noticed. But the cats, researchers suggest, made the first choice. The question your cat carries tonight began here, at the edge of firelight. 100 centuries ago, a cat's skeleton has remained almost unchanged across 10 millennia. While dogs were reshaped dramatically by selective breeding, shorter legs, flatter faces, altered temperaments, domestic cats diverged from their wild ancestor, Felis sylvestris lybica, with minimal genetic change. A 2017 study in Nature, Ecology and Evolution confirmed that domestic cats carry nearly the same genome as their wild counterparts. The difference lies in a small cluster of genes linked to tameness, reduced fear response, and a capacity for closeness. Nature kept almost everything. It softened one thing: the willingness to be near. How little needs to change for closeness to become possible. In ancient Egypt, a cat settles perfectly still beside a linen-wrapped figure, watching the door. Cats were not merely tolerated, they were revered. The goddess Bastet presided over home, protection, and maternal warmth. Killing a cat carried severe legal penalty. When a household cat died, family members shaved their eyebrows in mourning. Archaeologists have found mummified cats buried alongside their owners, with small bowls of milk placed nearby. Egyptians observed that cats protected grain stores, guarded against snakes, and seemed to read the emotional temperature of a home with uncanny accuracy. They were already doing what they still do. They had already become mirrors. A cat presses its cheek against a human hand. This gesture, bunting, deposits scent from glands near the cheeks, chin, and forehead. Researchers at the University of Lincoln found that cats perform this behavior most frequently with individuals they have formed a secure bond with, not simply with whoever feeds them. The scent deposited contains pheromones associated with calm and familiarity. In multi-cat households, cats exchange this scent as a form of social bonding, creating a shared olfactory identity that says, "We belong to the same world." When your cat presses its face to yours, it is placing you inside its definition of home. Somewhere in ancient Rome, a cat walks along the ridge of a tiled roof, pausing at a window ledge. As the Roman Empire expanded, cats traveled with it, carried on ships to control rodents, then left behind in new ports, new cities, new homes. By the 1st century CE, domestic cats had spread across Europe, tracking the movement of grain and the roads that carried it. Unlike dogs, who were transported deliberately, cats traveled as stowaways, attaching themselves to human movement without being directed. Each new territory they entered, they assessed. The same behavioral template across 1,000 miles of empire. Voluntary proximity, calibrated distance. Your cat's ancestors assessed every room they entered. Your cat still does. A cat narrows its eyes slowly at a human across a room. This gesture, the slow blink, is one of the most studied forms of cat-human communication. A 2020 study in Scientific Reports found that cats are more likely to approach a human who has slow blinked at them, and more likely to slow blink in return. The slow blink signals non-threat. In feline body language, direct eye contact is a form of challenge. Softening the gaze communicates trust. Humans who slow blinked back were rated by the cats as more familiar and secure. The cats responded to an emotional signal they recognized across species. They were reading the room. They still are. In the Middle Ages, cats disappeared from much of Europe, persecuted as symbols of ill fortune. Their populations reduced in certain regions. Without cats to control rodent populations, grain stores were compromised and disease spread more easily. When cats returned to favor in the 17th and 18th centuries, becoming companions in Dutch and Flemish paintings, presences in domestic interiors, their populations recovered. What is notable is the speed with which the human-cat bond re-established itself. It did not need to be rebuilt. The behavioral template was intact on both sides. The cats had not forgotten how to be near us. Something in both species had learned what this proximity meant and held it across centuries of distance. A cat watches a person from across the room and slowly lowers itself to the floor without looking away. Researchers studying cat behavior have identified the sentinel posture, a state of relaxed watchfulness in which a cat monitors its environment without tension, its body settled but its attention present. Studies suggest cats spend a significant portion of their waking hours in this state near trusted humans. They are not asleep. They are not unsettled. They are simply keeping watch. In domestic cats, this behavior appears redirected from territory monitoring toward the social group. Your cat, settled at the far end of a room while you move through your evening, is attending to you, quietly, without asking you to know. By the 19th century, cats had become the subject of scientific curiosity. Naturalists began documenting their behaviors, recording how they responded to strangers versus familiar people, how they communicated through posture and sound. One observation appeared repeatedly. Domestic cats almost never meow at each other as adults. The meow, researchers would later confirm, is a vocalization developed almost exclusively for communication with humans, a behavior cats appear to have invented specifically for this relationship. A cat meowing at you is not using its natural language. It is using a language it developed because you were listening. The relationship changed the animal. The animal changed because of you. A cat positions itself in a doorway, choosing neither to enter nor leave. This threshold behavior reflects a genuine decision-making process. Research on feline cognition suggests cats assess environmental security in continuous, real-time micro-evaluations, weighing sensory input against established patterns of familiarity. The doorway holds information. The cat can observe two spaces simultaneously. Every change in a cat's environment, a new smell, a shifted piece of furniture, an altered emotional tone, registers as a data point in an ongoing safety assessment. The cat in the doorway is doing what cats have done for 10 millennia: watching, weighing, and choosing when to move closer. Cats communicate primarily through body language, and a vocabulary is precise. A tail held upright is a greeting, derived from the posture kittens use when approaching their mother. A tail low and tucked signals uncertainty. A tail puffed signals startle. A tail curled gently around a human leg is an affiliative gesture. You are mine, and I am yours. Researchers at the Royal Veterinary College catalogued over 200 distinct postural signals in domestic cats, many modified over generations of cohabitation. Simplified, slowed, made more legible to animals without feline visual processing. Cats have learned to speak more clearly to us over time. The conversation has been going on longer than either species knew. A mother cat carries a kitten in her mouth across a room, its body limp and trusting. This complete muscular surrender in kittens, induced by gentle pressure on the scruff, activates a hardwired calming reflex. Studies in feline and related mammalian neuroscience suggest that scruff pressure engages neural pathways associated with reduced stress hormone activity and induced stillness. Though researchers note these mechanisms are better documented in kittens than adult cats. Adult cats sometimes retain a vestigial form of this response. In some individuals, being held in positions that recreate that sensation produces visible calming even years into adulthood. The body remembers being carried. Some responses to comfort do not need to be relearned. They were never fully set down. In Victorian England, cats began appearing in domestic interiors in a new way, not only as working animals but as companions, depicted in paintings beside children, settled on armchairs, integrated into the texture of home life. This shift coincided with the first documented accounts of cats exhibiting what owners described as emotional attunement. The cat that came when someone cried, the cat that withdrew when the household was tense, the cat that settled on the lap of whoever seemed most distressed. These observations were dismissed as anthropomorphism for most of the following century. but the behaviors being described were real. Cats were doing what they had always done. Humans were only beginning to find words for it. A cat's hearing range extends from approximately 48 Hz to 85,000 Hz, compared to a human range of roughly 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. Cats perceive a portion of the acoustic world entirely inaccessible to human senses. They can detect the ultrasonic vocalizations of rodents. They can hear a heartbeat from a short distance. In a quiet room, a cat can hear your breathing change. Studies on cat stress responses have found that raised voices, even those not directed at the cat, produce measurable cortisol increases. The cat does not need to understand the words. It reads the frequency, the rhythm, the tension carried in the sound. It knows whether the room has changed. It has been reading that signal for a very long time. Cats have approximately 200 million scent receptors, compared to a human's 5 million. The olfactory cortex occupies a proportionally larger space in a cat's brain than in a human's. But cats use scent not only for predation and territory, but as a primary channel for reading emotional states. Humans' sweat, breath, and skin chemistry change measurably under stress, fear, grief, and illness. Research published in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that cats in households with chronically stressed owners showed elevated stress markers themselves, and this transfer appeared mediated in part through olfactory cues. Your cat smells your cortisol. They are not imagining your state. They are reading it directly, at a chemical level, from the air between you. A cat settles beside someone who is crying and does not move away. This behavior, remaining close during a human's emotional distress without seeking to play or demand attention, has been documented in behavioral studies as a form of social buffering. A 2019 study found that cats showed measurable behavioral changes in the presence of owners who were crying versus owners who were humming neutrally. The cats oriented toward the crying owner approached more frequently and spent more time in physical contact. The researchers noted that this response appeared to be a form of affiliative support, the same behavior cats show toward distressed companion animals. Cats are not indifferent to your emotional state. They orient toward it. Something in that orientation, science is still learning to name. A cat curls tighter on a blanket, and a low vibration fills the room. This is the purr, produced by rapid glottal movements up to 150 times per second, generating sound on both inhalation and exhalation. Cats purr during contentment, during stress, during recovery from illness, leading researchers to suggest purring functions as a self-regulating mechanism rather than a pure emotional signal. Some researchers have noted that frequencies in the range of 25 to 50 Hz may support tissue recovery in certain contexts, though direct therapeutic effects on humans from cat purring have not been established in controlled trials. When a cat purrs against your body, the vibration is felt before it is heard. Something in you responds. The body registers it as calm. By the early 20th century, cats had spread to every inhabited continent except Antarctica. The mechanism was the same as always: human movement, grain transport, ship travel. But something else had also spread. the expectation that a cat living inside a human home would have an interior life worth attending to. The first scientific papers on feline psychology appeared in the 1920s and 30s, primarily in veterinary contexts, focused on behavior problems. But the questions being asked in those papers were new. Not what does this cat do? What does this cat feel? The question, once asked, did not go away. It is still being asked. Every moment you wonder what is happening inside your cat's quiet body. You are part of that inquiry. A cat needs, rhythmically pressing its front paws against a soft surface, alternating left and right. This behavior originates in kittenhood. Kneading against the mother stimulates milk flow. In adult cats, it appears in contexts of deep comfort and security, on soft blankets, on trusted humans, in places that smell familiar. Researchers note that kneading in adult cats is associated with activation of the brain's reward pathways, particularly dopamine release. The cat is not doing this for you. It is doing this because something in the present moment has returned it, briefly, to the earliest security it ever knew. The motion itself carries the memory, and it has chosen to feel that here, in this space, beside you. Cats have a third eyelid, the nictitating membrane, that partially covers the eye when the cat is very relaxed or beginning to fall asleep. When this membrane is visible, the cat is in a state of lowered vigilance, its threat detection system quieted. In the wild, this vulnerability would be managed carefully. In the domestic setting, cats allow this membrane to show only when they feel secure enough to lower their guard completely. If you have seen the pale edge of this membrane in your cat's resting eye, you have seen something specific. The moment the body decided that nothing in this room requires watching. That decision is made continuously, recalibrated with every sound, every shift in the air. It is a form of trust expressed entirely in anatomy. Research into feline attachment accelerated after a landmark 2019 study by Kristin Vitale and colleagues at Oregon State University, which applied the strange situation protocol, originally designed to measure infant attachment to caregivers, to cats and their owners. Approximately 65% of cats showed a secure attachment pattern toward their owner, comparable to the roughly 65% secure attachment rate seen in human infants. Cats with secure attachment, when reunited with their owner after a brief separation, showed reduced stress behaviors and returned to exploration more quickly. Insecure cats showed avoidance or ambivalence, the same patterns seen in insecure infant attachment. Cats form attachments. They register your presence as a form of security. When you return, something in them recalibrates toward calm. A cat sleeps between 16 and 20 hours a day. This is not laziness. It is biology. Cats are crepuscular hunters, evolutionarily calibrated to be most active at dawn and dusk, conserving energy between hunts. But what is notable in the domestic cat is how this sleep is distributed. Studies show that domestic cats adjust their sleep timing significantly to overlap with their owner's schedule. A cat living with a person who works night shifts gradually shifts its active hours. A cat in a household with young children adapts to a more fragmented pattern. The cat is not following a fixed biological clock. It is following yours. It has, over thousands of years, learned to synchronize. Sleep, for your cat, is partially a social act. Cats have a vomeronasal organ, also called Jacobson's organ, located in the roof of the mouth. When a cat opens its mouth slightly and appears to pause mid-breath, it is drawing air across this organ to process chemical information more precisely. This expression, called the Feline response, allows the cat to analyze pheromones, hormonal signals, and complex scent molecules that the nasal passages alone cannot decode. Owners have reported their cats performing the Feline response after smelling items of clothing, bedding, or spaces associated with people who are ill, grieving, or under significant stress. The cat is not reacting to a smell. It is reading a document. Your body writes in chemistry. Your cat has been reading it more completely than you knew. In the mid-20th century, the field of anthrozoology, the study of human-animal relationships, began to formalize. Researchers noted a pattern across cultures. Humans living with companion animals showed measurable reductions in cortisol, blood pressure, and self-reported loneliness. But the cat presented a puzzle. Unlike dogs, shaped by thousands of years of selective breeding for social responsiveness, cats had not been bred for this. Yet the calming effects were comparable. Something in the relationship was producing a mutual regulatory effect, one nervous system quieting in the presence of the other, without having been designed to. The cat had not been engineered to soothe you. Once that fact appeared in the data, it was difficult to explain away. A cat rests its chin on the edge of a surface and watches the room with half-closed eyes. This posture, relaxed vigilance, neither alert nor asleep, is one of the most common positions in domestic cats during evening hours in a household they regard as secure. Studies suggest that in this state, the cat's threat detection circuitry is quieted, its heart rate lower, its cortisol falling. It is resting in the presence of something it trusts. It feels the temperature of the room, the rhythm of your breathing, the sounds that are familiar, the absence of anything requiring response. And when all of those readings return the same answer, calm, 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 it sets its chin down, and it stays. You have been listening for a while now. Notice that your breathing has slowed, not because you decided it should, but because something in the rhythm of this hour simply carried it there. You are also a mammal. Your nervous system has the same basic architecture as your cat's. The same limbic structures, the same cortisol response to threat, the same capacity for the body to soften when it registers security. Separated by 90 million years of evolution, and yet the biology of comfort is nearly the same. Your cat, right now, reads your breathing the way you read the temperature of a room. It is monitoring you, quietly, the way it always has. You don't need to be anything other than what you are in this moment. The room is quiet. You are breathing. Somewhere nearby, a warmth is settled. Let your body take that in. Let it decide, on its own, that nothing here requires attention. Cats show individual differences in stress response that are stable across their lifetimes. a finding consistent with what researchers call temperament in animals. A 2021 study in PLOS One assessed over 4,000 cats across Finland on 5 dimensions: activity, fearfulness, aggression, sociability, and litter box behavior. These traits were stable over years and correlated with early life experience, genetics, and the emotional environment of the household. A cat raised in a high-stress home showed different baseline cortisol patterns than one raised in a calm environment, even after the stressor was removed. The nervous system had learned a default setting. It held that setting into adulthood. This is not unique to cats. It is not unique to animals. A cat that has been startled does not immediately return to rest. After a fear response, a cat's body requires approximately 20 to 30 minutes to fully return to baseline cortisol and heart rate levels. During this recovery window, the cat remains in heightened vigilance. Ears slightly rotated, pupils slightly dilated, attention tracking every sound. Humans often interpret this as the cat being still upset. In a sense, that is accurate. The body does not flip a switch. It winds down gradually, through a process that requires time and the continued perception of calm. If you have ever needed quiet after something frightening, time to settle, time to breathe back down, you know what your cat is doing. Cats living in multi-cat households establish social hierarchies that are largely invisible to human observers. Unlike dogs, which display dominance through physical posturing, cats organize themselves through spatial arrangements. Who sleeps where? Who passes through which doorway first? Who has priority access to resources? A 2020 GPS tracking study found that cats regularly avoided spaces recently occupied by cats they had tense relationships with, even when those cats were not present. The avoidance was based on scent. The cat was navigating by what it had already read in the room. The social architecture of your household, if you have multiple cats, is elaborately organized. You are living inside a system of invisible agreements you were never told about. Cats can experience chronic stress without ever displaying obvious signs of distress. This phenomenon, sometimes called masked stress in veterinary literature, occurs because cats' evolutionary history as both predator and prey selected strongly for concealment of vulnerability. A cat that shows fear or weakness risks becoming a target. So domestic cats facing persistent stressors, a hostile housemate, an unpredictable routine, chronic loud noise, may suppress overt behavioral signals while continuing to experience internal physiological stress. The evidence shows up not in behavior but in health. Stress-related cystitis, over-grooming, gastrointestinal changes. Your cat may be carrying something you cannot see. The body keeps its own record. A cat stations itself beside a sleeping person and does not sleep itself, watching the door. This vigil-keeping behavior has been documented in domestic cats and interpreted by ethologists as a form of protective affiliative behavior. It appears most often in cats who have formed strong bonds with a specific person. They place themselves at the threshold of the resting space, monitoring the environment, while the trusted individual is vulnerable in sleep. It is the same behavior seen in bonded pairs of cats. One rests. One watches. Then they switch. Your cat may be doing this for you tonight, in a room where you cannot see it, keeping watch over what it loves, in the oldest way it knows. Cats have been observed preparing for their owner's return home before any auditory or olfactory cue is available. Studies suggest the most probable mechanism is circadian rhythm entrainment. Cats whose owners maintain consistent schedules become attuned to the timing of their return and show behavioral preparation, moving toward the door, becoming more active. In the minutes before arrival, some researchers have speculated about sensitivity to subtle vibrational patterns in the building's structure, though this remains unconfirmed. What is consistent is that the cat prepares. It reads time the way it reads everything else, through the continuous monitoring of pattern. When the pattern says you are about to arrive, it moves to meet you. The domestic cat's vocalizations include an estimated 16 distinct call types, according to researcher Susanne Schutz at Lund University, who has devoted years to studying cat-human communication. Schutz's research found that cats modulate the pitch, duration, and prosody of their meows to communicate different requests and states, and that owners, even without training, correctly identify the emotional valence of these calls at rates above chance. Cats and humans have co-developed a communication system neither species uses with any other. It is not language, but it is a shared vocabulary, built over thousands of years of listening, across a gulf of biology, until something resembling understanding became possible. A cat's whiskers, its vibrissae, extend to approximately the width of its body and function as precision environmental sensors. Each whisker is embedded in a follicle rich in nerve endings, capable of detecting air pressure changes, subtle vibrations, and spatial dimensions. Whiskers also serve a social function. A cat holds them forward when curious, fanned slightly when calm, flattened when frightened or aggressive. The whisker position is one of the most reliable real-time indicators of a cat's emotional state. You have been registering this information without knowing its name, receiving the signal without the vocabulary to describe it. The cat has been communicating continuously. The channel between you has always been open. Cats living in homes with depressed owners show measurable behavioral changes. A 2022 analysis published in Frontiers in Veterinary Science found that cats in households with owners experiencing depression showed increased hiding, decreased play, and altered feeding patterns, even when the cat's daily routine remained unchanged. The researchers proposed that cats were responding not to changes in their schedule, but to changes in the emotional quality of interactions. Decreased voice engagement, less spontaneous touch, altered movement rhythms. The cat was reading the room. The room had changed. It responded accordingly. Your emotional life is not separate from your cat's environment. It is part of the environment it lives inside. A cat touches its nose to a human's hand and then steps back. This gesture, the nose touch greeting, is how cats greet other cats with whom they have affiliative bonds. The nose is the most sensitive olfactory surface, and placing it in direct contact requires a complete absence of threat perception. When a cat offers this greeting to a human, it is importing a behavior from its own social world and directing it across species. a gesture developed for cat-to-cat intimacy, now being used with you. The fact that your cat has made this translation is its own quiet statement about where you belong in its world. In the 1970s and 80s, veterinary behaviorists began formally documenting a phenomenon owners had described for decades: that cats responded differently to household tension, not to individual events, but to sustained atmospheric emotional states. Chronic marital conflict, prolonged grief, extended illness. These conditions appeared in the patient histories of cats presenting with stress symptoms, even when the cat's own care had not changed. The field of veterinary behavioral medicine has since developed frameworks for this transfer. The cat, as a social animal embedded in a household system, is affected by the emotional regulation of that system. The cat does not live beside your emotional life. It lives inside it. Cats have an exceptionally well-developed capacity for spatial memory. Studies have found that cats can accurately recall the locations of objects, food sources, and exits in complex environments after a single exposure, and can hold this information for months. This memory appears predominantly olfactory. The cat maps its environment by smell as much as by sight, maintaining an internal model updated with new scent information. A change in furniture arrangement registers as a change in scent landscape, familiar smells in unfamiliar positions. The cat's discomfort with rearranged rooms is not resistance. It is a genuine recalibration of an internal map. The world has shifted. The cat is rebuilding its understanding of where things are. A cat presses its face against a corner that has been recently painted. It is not simply reacting to the chemical smell. It is redepositing its own scent pheromones over a surface that no longer carries them. Facial rubbing is the primary way cats re-establish olfactory familiarity after disruption. After a move, a renovation, a new piece of furniture, or a new person's arrival, cats systematically re-scent their environment, moving through it in a deliberate circuit, redrawing the boundaries of what is known. It is their version of settling back in. What you do when you return to a place after a long absence, the cat does with its face. Cats that live together for extended periods synchronize their behavior patterns, sleeping at similar times, becoming active together, eating in rhythms that converge even without shared schedules. Researchers studying multi-cat households have found this synchronization deepens over time through scent exchange, vocalization, and the shared experience of occupying the same space. Bonded cats also show social referencing. When one cat encounters something uncertain, it looks to the other's response before deciding how to react. The other cat's calm is information. Its tension is information too. You may be a social reference point for your cat. In an uncertain moment, its reading of you may be its primary guide. The modern understanding of feline emotional life has shifted substantially in the past decade. Where earlier research often characterized cats as asocial compared to dogs, current ethological and neuroscientific evidence presents a more layered picture. Cats form strong individual attachments, show stress responses that mirror human anxiety, communicate through dozens of modalities simultaneously, and maintain long-term memories of specific individuals. A 2023 review in Animal Cognition concluded that cats possess the cognitive and emotional infrastructure for complex social relationships. But these operate at a subtlety and pace that human observers have historically underestimated. We were not wrong to feel something was happening between us. We were simply not seeing most of it. We are halfway through the journey. If this hour has been something you want to return to, if the quiet here is something your body recognized, there is a subscribe button waiting for you. Tap it gently, the way a cat presses its nose to something it trusts, and then come back. We're not finished yet. A cat that has been rehomed, moved from one household to another, typically requires weeks to months before its stress hormones return to baseline. Research on cats in shelter environments and newly rehomed cats consistently shows elevated cortisol levels during transition periods, along with behavioral markers of anxiety, reduced appetite, hiding, altered elimination behavior. But the same research shows something else. Cats with a single consistent caregiver during the transition period show significantly faster recovery. Not multiple caregivers. A singular, reliable presence. A consistent voice. A consistent smell. A consistent schedule appears to be the primary stabilizing factor. The cat does not need everything to be familiar. It needs one anchor. One is often enough. Cats that experience early social deprivation, limited handling by humans during the socialization window between 2 and 7 weeks of age, show persistent differences in stress reactivity and social behavior into adulthood. This window is now well documented in feline developmental biology. The nervous system during these weeks is highly plastic, and the experiences encoded there form templates for how the cat will interpret human contact for the rest of its life. A kitten handled gently during this period learns that human touch means security. A kitten handled rarely or roughly learns a different lesson, difficult to fully unlearn. The earliest experiences are not erased. They are carried. They become the baseline from which everything else is measured. Cats that have been separated from their owners during significant life disruptions sometimes show what veterinary behaviorists describe as a grief-adjacent response. Reduced activity, loss of appetite, altered sleep, decreased interest in play. These responses resolve, in most cases, when the owner returns, but not always at the same rate. Some cats show a period of careful distance upon reunion, not aggression, simply a gradual recalibration. Researchers interpret this as the cat re-establishing, slowly, that this person is secure to attach to again. It is not withholding. It is the way something that has been hurt moves carefully when it begins to trust again. A cat licks a human's hand. This behavior, allo-grooming directed toward a human, is derived from the social grooming cats perform with bonded companions. In cat colonies, allo-grooming is affiliative maintenance, cleaning areas the other cat cannot reach, particularly around the face and head. When a cat grooms a human, it is extending a behavior reserved for close social partners. The tongue, covered in papillae that function as microcombs, is a precise instrument being applied to you with care. The cat is maintaining you. It is doing what bonded cats do for each other. It has decided you belong in its social world, and it is acting accordingly. Cats living with humans who experience post-traumatic stress have been incorporated into some therapeutic frameworks as adjunct supports. Not trained service animals, but companion animals, whose presence appears to moderate hypervigilance and startle response in certain individuals. Research in this area remains preliminary, but early studies suggest that the physiological regulation effects of cat companionship, lowered heart rate, cortisol reduction, the particular frequency of purring, may interact favorably with certain stress-related symptom clusters. The mechanism is not fully understood, but the data points consistently. The body in the presence of a bonded cat behaves differently than the body alone. Something is exchanged. It does not always have a name. A cat finds the patch of afternoon sunlight and settles into it without moving. It rotates slowly, keeping the warmth in contact with its body without appearing to decide to. This thermotaxis, passive movement toward heat, is one of the simplest observable behaviors in domestic cats. Cats are more thermophilic than most mammals. Their thermoneutral zone is higher than a human's, roughly 86 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. A sunbeam for a cat is a biological gift. The body getting exactly what it needs, without effort, without asking. There is a simplicity in watching a living thing receive warmth that is hard to name and easy to recognize. When cats experience fear, their bodies produce cortisol, but they also produce oxytocin under different conditions. Research on the human-cat bond has found that affiliative interactions, gentle touch, calm vocalization, familiar proximity, trigger oxytocin release in both cats and their owners. Oxytocin is the same neurochemical involved in parent-infant bonding, social trust, and anxiety reduction. In a 2019 study, blood oxytocin levels were measured in cats and owners before and after a 10-minute interaction. Both showed elevated oxytocin afterward, and the increases were correlated. The calmer and more affectionate the exchange, the larger the response in both. You are chemically affecting each other. The bond has a biology. Cats do not wag their tails when content, a fact that surprises many people who expect emotional signaling to translate simply from one species to another. A slowly swaying tail in a cat indicates conflict. The animal is simultaneously drawn toward something and uncertain about it. A rapidly thrashing tail indicates high arousal, often frustration. A still, slightly elevated tail indicates relaxed confidence. The tail is a continuous readout of internal state, but it speaks in a vocabulary that must be learned, because it does not translate from any other animal's body language. Your cat has been broadcasting its emotional state continuously. Whether you have been reading it accurately is a different question. The signal was always there. Cats have been shown to demonstrate what researchers call referential communication toward humans, directing human attention toward objects or locations the cat cannot access on its own. In controlled studies, when a cat knew the location of hidden food but could not reach it, it consistently oriented toward the correct location and looked back at the human experimenter, alternating gaze between the object and the person. This back-and-forth gaze, a behavior once considered unique to great apes and dogs, indicates that the cat understands the human as an intentional agent whose attention can be directed. The cat knows you have a mind. It has been, for a long time, trying to communicate with it. A cat rests its paw on a human's arm and does not move. This gesture, often made during shared stillness, while the person is reading or resting or has been quiet for some time, is one of the most discussed and least scientifically formalized behaviors in the human-cat relationship. Anecdotally, owners report it occurring most often during their own moments of distress. Ethologists categorize it as affiliative physical contact, possibly derived from the nursing behavior of kittens resting against their mother. The cat does not explain what it is doing. It simply stays. A paw on an arm, in the quiet, and the long history of what it means to remain. You are halfway through. Something has shifted. You may not be able to name it exactly, but the body knows. The breath is slower. The space between thoughts is wider. This is what the journey does. When you allow it to carry you, your cat, wherever it is tonight, is also somewhere in a spectrum between wakefulness and sleep. Its nervous system moving through its own quiet gradient. The same neurochemicals, the same cortisol falling, the same warmth of a trusted space. You don't have to arrive anywhere tonight. You are already here. The second half of this journey is softer than the first. Let it come to you. You don't need to reach for it. Simply breathe. Let the facts arrive slowly, the way a cat settles into a patch of afternoon warmth. Not rushing. Simply receiving what is already present. Cats dream. During REM sleep, cats show rapid eye movements, whisker twitching, small limb movements, and vocalizations. The same behavioral signatures of dreaming observed in humans and other mammals. Researchers believe cats replay and process the events of waking life during sleep, consolidating spatial memories, social experiences, and hunting sequences. What a cat dreams of is inaccessible to us. But the fact of dreaming, the existence of an interior life that continues in sleep, that takes the day's experiences and turns them over in private, is not. It is the same machinery, running quietly, in a small, warm body, beside you. A cat that has lived in a household for years continues to explore its environment, investigating familiar rooms as if they sometimes contain new information. This ongoing exploratory behavior appears to be driven by the continuous olfactory updating of the cat's internal map. New scents enter constantly. Traces of outdoors on clothing, chemistry changes in people's skin, the slow drift of cooking or cleaning products. The cat is not exploring because it has forgotten. It is exploring because the map is always changing, and the map must always be current. In a world that shifts continuously, staying current is not anxiety. It is care. Cats have individual sleeping preferences that remain stable over years. Particular spots, particular surfaces, particular proximity to specific people. Research on feline sleep behavior found that cats return reliably to preferred locations even when multiple alternatives are available, and that these preferences are strongly associated with familiar scent. A sleeping cat is telling you something about where it feels most secure. The location is not random. It was assessed. The same criteria have applied since the first wildcat sat at the edge of firelight and decided, close enough to feel the warmth, close enough to be found. Your cat is sleeping in the geometry of trust. A kitten separated from its mother before 8 weeks of age is more likely to show social anxiety and stress reactivity in adulthood. Early social bonds shape the nervous system's baseline expectations. A kitten that spends its early weeks in secure attachment, regular feeding, consistent warmth, gentle handling, develops cortisol regulation patterns that persist into adulthood. A kitten whose early environment was unpredictable develops different baseline patterns. The nervous system learns what to expect, and then it spends years looking for evidence that confirms those expectations. This is not a flaw. It is a memory system built to hold what mattered earliest. Cats show what behavioral researchers call emotional contagion, a basic form of empathy in which the emotional state of one individual influences the emotional state of another. Cats housed alongside a chronically stressed companion showed elevated stress markers themselves, even when the stressor was not in their own environment. The transfer appears to occur through scent, vocalization patterns, and subtle postural changes. The cat is not reading your mind. It is reading your body, and its own body responds to what it reads. Your calm moves through your cat the way quiet moves through a room. Gradually, completely, without either of you deciding it should. A cat that trusts you will show you its belly. The ventral surface is the most vulnerable region of the cat's body, where vital organs are least protected. Exposing it requires complete suspension of threat perception. When a cat rolls to display its belly, it is not requesting to be touched. This misunderstanding often ends in a scratch. It is displaying a state of trust. The belly display is not an invitation. It is a declaration. I am secure enough here to be unguarded. To receive it is to receive something the cat does not offer lightly. The gesture has always meant what it looks like it means. Cats have been documented returning to the homes of owners who have moved, sometimes across significant distances. While the mechanisms of feline navigation are not fully understood, cats appear to use magnetic sensitivity, solar orientation, and olfactory cues to orient themselves spatially. But the behavior itself, the sustained effort to return to a specific location associated with a specific person, suggests something about the weight of attachment. The home the cat is navigating toward is not just a territory. It is a place associated with a particular presence. The cat is not finding a house. It is finding the person who made the house what it was. Cats living with elderly individuals show behavioral patterns that veterinary behaviorists have associated with what may be a form of compensatory responsiveness. In households where an elderly person's mobility and activity level decline over time, bonded cats often increase the duration of physical contact, spending more time resting near the person, vocalizing more frequently, and orienting toward the person during nighttime hours. Whether this constitutes intentional caregiving in any meaningful sense remains an open question. But the pattern is consistent. The cat's behavior shifts in response to the person's changed state. Whatever the mechanism, the adjustment moves in the direction of greater presence. The cat moves closer when something changes. In historical Japan, cats were kept in temples and libraries to guard written texts from rodents. The maneki neko, the beckoning cat figure found across East Asia, is believed to originate from 17th century Edo period Japan, associated with good fortune and welcome. Across Japanese artistic tradition, cats appear in domestic interiors, resting on tatami mats, sitting in doorways, watching winter rain from beneath roof eaves. The postures are the ones you see tonight. The same half-closed eyes, the same particular arrangement of a body at rest. Across every civilization that kept records, the cat arrived in this same posture of patient presence. A cat that has access to both indoor and outdoor environments typically spends more time indoors than expected, and specifically chooses to spend this indoor time near its primary attachment figure. GPS tracking studies of owned cats with outdoor access have consistently found that cats voluntarily return to the household multiple times throughout the day, often oriented toward the specific room their owner occupies. The outdoor environment, with all its stimulation, the birds, the other cats, the shifting scents, is secondary. The primary draw is the person. The cat chooses proximity. Every day, across thousands of small returns, it chooses to come back. The sound of a cat's purr changes depending on context. Researchers have identified a specific solicitation purr, used when a cat wants food or attention, that embeds a higher frequency cry within the lower rumble of a standard purr. Studies found that humans, even those without cats, rate the solicitation purr as more urgent and respond to it more quickly. The cat has learned that embedding a cry inside a purr is more effective than either alone. It has understood something about what humans respond to. It is not manipulation. Exactly. It is communication that evolved to work. The cat has been learning your language the whole time. Cats can distinguish between their owner's voice and a stranger's voice. Research using habituation-dishabituation paradigms has shown that cats' ears orient selectively toward recordings of their owner's voice, and that they show stronger orienting responses to their owner calling their name than to a stranger calling the same name. The discrimination is not just auditory pattern recognition. It is recognition of a specific individual within a vocal landscape that contains many sounds. Across all the voices a cat hears in a day, yours is the one its body turns toward. A cat grooms itself after an interaction that felt uncertain or mildly uncomfortable. This displacement grooming, turning to a self-soothing behavior during emotional ambiguity, is a well-documented response in cats. Grooming activates opioid pathways and reduces cortisol. It is genuinely calming. After a greeting that was slightly too loud, a touch that lasted slightly too long, an approach from an unfamiliar person, the cat turns inward to something it can control, something that reliably produces calm. Most of us have a version of this. Some behavior that turns the day's uncertainty into something manageable. The cat does it with its tongue. The comfort is real either way. Cats show measurable preference for owners who allow them to initiate and terminate contact, who offer access without insisting on engagement. Studies on feline social preferences have consistently found that cats spend more time with and show lower stress markers around. Humans, who allow the cat to approach on its own terms and withdraw without pursuit. The cat's autonomy, its ability to choose the distance, appears to be the variable that makes proximity feel secure. This is not aloofness. This is the structure of a healthy bond, described in the language of space and patience. Being allowed to leave is sometimes what makes it possible to stay. The ark has been traveling a long way, and what has accumulated across every fact is a single picture. A nervous system that monitors its world continuously, that reads emotional information through chemistry and sound and posture, that forms bonds, that remembers who is secure, that carries the emotional climate of the home in its body without choosing to. The question we have been carrying, what does your cat actually feel when the world changes? And how do they carry it? Is beginning to answer itself. They carry it the way you carry it. In the body. In the baseline. In the quiet attention that never fully rests. A cat follows its owner from room to room without demanding interaction. This behavior, sometimes called the shadow pattern, is one of the most commonly reported and most misunderstood. It is not separation anxiety, which is characterized by distress when the owner is absent. Shadow behavior occurs when the owner is present, and the cat simply arranges itself nearby. Ethologists interpret this as a maintenance behavior. The cat is keeping its attachment figure within perceptual range, because proximity to a trusted individual is itself a resource. Your presence is something your cat seeks out, the way it seeks warmth. You are part of the environment it prefers. Cats show a measurable positive response to music specifically composed for their perceptual range. Sliding frequencies, purr-like tempos, and rhythms matching a cat's resting heart rate of approximately 120 to 140 beats per minute. Research by Charles Snowden at the University of Wisconsin found that cats approached speakers playing species-appropriate music more often than silence or human-targeted music, and showed reduced stress behaviors in its presence. The frequencies humans find soothing may not translate directly across species, but the principle that a particular arrangement of sound can carry the body toward calm is shared. Comfort speaks different languages. It still speaks. In the hours before dawn, a cat's activity levels rise. This crepuscular peak, an evolutionary echo of the wildcat's hunting schedule, produces the phenomenon familiar to most cat owners. The 3 or 4 a.m. sprint through the hallway, the sudden burst of movement in the dark. But studies have also found something else in this dawn-adjacent window. Cats during this period often seek out their sleeping owners, not to wake them, necessarily, but to locate them, to confirm their presence. The seeking appears affiliative rather than predatory in motivation. The cat burns its ancient energy, and then it comes back. Because this is where home is. Cats have been shown to recognize faces, both human faces and feline faces, at above-chance rates in laboratory settings. The mechanism appears to rely primarily on configurational processing, the same facial recognition system used by humans, rather than simple feature detection. Cats recognize their owner's face when presented in photographs, showing stronger orienting responses than to strangers' faces. The cat, which evolved a visual system calibrated for low-light hunting and motion detection, has developed the capacity to read the specific arrangement of features on a human face. It knows what you look like. It has learned your face the way you learn the faces of people who matter. When a cat is ill, it often withdraws. This behavioral pattern, isolating in a quiet, concealed location, is an adaptive response rooted in the same evolutionary logic that produced masked stress. A vulnerable animal that appears well is less likely to be targeted. Domestic cats retain this response, even where predation is not a threat, meaning sick cats often suffer without visible signal. But cats that feel genuinely secure, that have registered their environment as consistently unthreatening, show reduced hiding when unwell. The presence of a trusted person can sometimes change the biology of how vulnerability is expressed. Held consistently enough, security reaches that deep. A cat presses its forehead against a doorframe on its way into a room, bunting against the surface, depositing pheromones from the temporal glands near its eyes. But the headbutt is also directed at people. The cat pressing its forehead against a human's forehead, chin, or hand. In feline social behavior, head-to-head contact is among the most intimate forms of physical greeting, reserved for bonded individuals in established relationships. When a cat headbutts you, it is bringing the most sensitive part of its face into contact range. It has decided the distance between your face and its face is secure enough to close. Research on cats in multi-generational family homes has found that cats form differentiated bonds with different family members. Not a generalized familiarity with the household, but specific, individual attachments of varying intensity. A cat may follow one person more closely, seek another specifically during thunderstorms, and choose a third's lap exclusively at certain times of day. These differential attachments appear stable over years and correlate with the quality and consistency of individual interactions, rather than simply with who feeds the cat. The cat has assessed each person in the household and formed its own quiet conclusions. The behavior reveals them, slowly, to anyone paying attention. Cats that have lived together for years sometimes sleep pressed against each other, a behavior called pillowing, in which one cat rests its head on another's body. Contact sleep requires mutual tolerance and active choice, and is seen almost exclusively between bonded individuals. Both cats show lower cortisol and slower heart rates during contact sleep than during solo sleep. But this is not purely thermoregulatory. Cats with access to warm surfaces still choose to sleep pressed against a bonded companion. The warmth of a body that has decided to trust you is different from the warmth of a surface. The cat knows the difference. In the final years of its life, a cat's attachment behavior typically deepens. Studies on senior cats have found increased proximity seeking, more frequent vocalization toward owners, longer durations of physical contact, and greater sensitivity to the owner's absence. As the body becomes less capable of regulating itself independently, thermoregulation less efficient, sleep more fragmented, the external world more effortful, the cat turns more completely toward what has long been its primary resource: the trusted person. In the last chapters of the arc, the cat narrows the distance between itself and what it loves. It does not explain this. It simply comes closer, until the distance is gone. The journey began with a wildcat making a choice toward firelight. And this is where that choice has led. To an animal that carries your nervous system's climate in its own body, that reads your emotional state through chemistry and sound and posture, that forms secure bonds and moves closer as life narrows. Your cat doesn't just share your home, it shares your nervous system, and its emotional health is quietly shaped by yours. The cat has been demonstrating this across 10,000 years. Every time it moved closer, every time it chose to stay. The answer was always, "I will come closer." That has always been enough. You are near the end of the journey now. Your breathing has its own rhythm. You don't need to direct it. The body knows what to do in the dark, when the day has finally released it. Your cat, wherever it is tonight, is somewhere in the same gradient. Its nervous system winding towards sleep the way yours is. The same limbic structures, the same cortisol falling, the same small body, in its own particular arrangement, in the place that feels most like home. You don't have to carry anything from here. The wildcat at the edge of firelight made its choice 10,000 years ago. You inherited the warmth of that choice tonight. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to hold it in place. It is simply here, like a paw resting on an arm, like something that decided to stay. Let your body feel heavier. Let the space between thoughts grow wider. There is nothing to do in the dark but breathe. And the dark is patient. And you are already home. A cat blinks slowly at you from across the room. You blink back. Something passes between you in the time it takes to exhale. Science calls it a slow blink, a signal of non-threat, of ease, of trust. The cat gives it no name at all. It simply holds your gaze a moment longer and then looks away. In the language between you, this is enough. A cat chooses the same spot every morning, on the same chair, facing the same window. It has made this choice for years. It will make it again tomorrow. There is a particular kind of peace in being a creature that already knows exactly where it wants to be, and goes there without deliberation, without doubt, without needing to consider the alternatives. When a cat settles against your chest and begins to purr, the frequency enters your body before your mind has registered the sound. You feel it in the sternum first. The vibration is between 25 and 50 hertz. Your bones receive it. Something in you that had been slightly clenched begins, without deciding to release. This is what 10,000 years of mutual presence feels like from the inside. A cat that has lived with you for years knows the particular sequence of sounds that means you are returning. The car in the distance, the specific rhythm of your footsteps, the sound of your key. It has already moved toward the entrance before you reach the door. It has been listening for you. It will not tell you how long. Cats grieve. Studies of bonded cats following the death of a companion show behavioral changes consistent with grief responses in other mammals. Reduced appetite, altered sleep, increased vocalization, and searching behavior in areas the companion used to occupy. The cat looks for what is gone, It does not have language for the absence. But the absence is real in the body, and the body registers loss the way all living things do, by noticing what is no longer there. A cat settles into a lap and begins to purr. The owner's blood pressure drops. This has been measured in multiple studies, across multiple conditions. It happens without either of them intending it. The body responds to what it recognizes as secure. That recognition is older than language. It does not require explanation, and it does not require understanding. It happens reliably in the presence of this particular warmth. Cats can be comforted by recorded voices. Studies have found that cats left alone show reduced stress behaviors when exposed to recordings of their owner's voice compared to silence or a stranger's voice. The voice itself, its rhythm, its frequency, its particular texture, carries information the nervous system has learned to recognize as secure. Your voice is a signal. It reaches your cat even when you are not in the room. A cat curls into a circle to sleep, nose resting near its tail, body forming a closed, self-contained shape. This thermoregulatory posture conserves heat, but it also presents no vulnerable surface to the room. The cat has made itself complete. Nothing exposed. Nothing requiring protection. Some nights, what the body needs most is simply to fold inward and hold its own warmth. When a cat chooses to remain in a room, when it has assessed the exits, read the occupants, and decided that nothing here requires vigilance, the signal is visible across its entire body. The ears soften, the pupils narrow, the tail stills, the breath slows. It looks like nothing at all. It is the body's quiet confirmation that this place has been decided. This is what security looks like from the inside. The oldest domestic cat whose age was reliably documented, a tabby named Creme Puff from Austin, Texas, lived to 38 years old. She died in 2005. Her owner, Jake Perry, credited her longevity in part to a calm household environment, consistent routine, and daily affection. Whether these factors contributed measurably to her long life is unknown. But the cat that outlives every expectation, in a home that held her gently, that story is its own kind of evidence. A cat tucks its paws beneath its body and rests in what owners call a loaf, all 4 feet concealed, weight settled low, face forward and still. This posture is associated in behavioral research with a comfortable, non-vigilant state. The cat has drawn in the parts of itself most useful for quick movement. It has decided it doesn't need them right now. The loaf is not laziness. It is a declaration. Nothing here requires readiness. I am resting completely inside this moment. In the final decades of the 20th century, researchers studying the human-animal bond found a consistent pattern. Loneliness, one of the most physiologically consequential human conditions, was measurably reduced in people living with companion animals. The cat did not solve loneliness, but it occupied something specific in the body's social accounting. A presence that was consistent, attuned, non-judgmental, and warm. The body registered it as companionship, and the biology of companionship is not indifferent to where it comes from. A cat returns to the same blanket for years. The blanket carries its scent. When you wash it, the cat investigates carefully, then begins the slow process of reclaiming it, rubbing, settling, breathing it back into familiarity. What the cat is seeking is not warmth. It is the smell of itself, in a place that was always secure. To settle back into something that still holds your scent. To know, by the way the world smells, exactly where you are. There is a way cats leave a room that is different from the way they enter. The entry is measured, assessed, cautious, gathering information. The departure. Once a cat has registered a space as secure, is quieter. There is no hesitation at the threshold. The cat simply passes through, the way a thought dissolves when sleep is close. Without looking back, without needing to. The cat is sleeping somewhere in this house tonight. Its paws are tucked beneath it. Its eyes are closed. Its breathing is slow and even, and completely without effort. You are breathing too. Slowly, evenly, without effort. Both of you, in the dark, in a room that has been decided to be secure. Neither one of you needs to do anything more tonight. Neither one of you is waiting for anything. The distance between a small sleeping body and yours, right now, is nothing that matters. You are both resting in the same quiet. You are both in the same dark. Let it hold you. Let it be enough. A cat that was once frightened of you, that hid when you entered the room, that flinched at your approach, and that now sleeps on your pillow. This is not a small thing. This is a nervous system that relearned, that gathered enough evidence, across enough time, that the baseline changed. The body revised its expectations because the evidence accumulated. Fear is not permanent. The nervous system is not fixed. What has been learned in the presence of consistent care can shift. Your cat notices when you are sad. It may not approach, but studies confirm it orients. It watches. It remains in the room. Not all comfort announces itself. Some of it stays nearby, quietly, until it is no longer needed. Present in the way a warm room is present, without insisting on being noticed. This is a form of care. It counts as care. A cat breathes at a resting rate of 20 to 30 breaths per minute. In a quiet room, in the dark, beside a sleeping person. This becomes part of the ambient sound, a small, rhythmic texture in the silence, the breath of something alive, and near, and not afraid. This is what 10,000 years of approach sounds like in the end. This small, unhurried sound, this choice, made again and again, to stay near. There are things your cat cannot tell you. It cannot say, "I noticed when you were tired." It cannot say, "I chose this particular spot because it carries your scent." It cannot say, "The sound of your voice, when you are calm, is the rhythm my day is organized around." It cannot say any of this, but it does all of it, every day, without needing acknowledgement, without needing you to know. In the dark, while you sleep, a cat may rest its paw on your hand, gently, without waking you, It settles there and does not move. In the morning, there will be no record of it. The cat will not mention it. Some things are offered in the quiet, without witness, without asking anything in return. The offering is not diminished by the silence around it. The wild cat that first moved toward human firelight did not know where it was going. It assessed the warmth. It assessed the distance. And it moved closer. The cat resting near you tonight is the descendant of that choice. 10,000 generations of approach, carried forward through every individual who decided the warmth was worth the risk of closeness. Every one of them made the same quiet bet. And here, in this room, tonight, is what that bet accumulated into. Your cat knows the sound of your breathing when you sleep. It is different from your waking breath. Slower, deeper, without the small irregularities of thought. The cat has learned this signature. It has learned the sound of you at complete rest. It has learned what you look and sound like when nothing in you is guarded anymore. To know someone that completely, to have mapped the sound of their surrender to sleep, is a particular kind of closeness that does not require a word. In settings where cats reside alongside individuals in palliative care, observers have noted consistent patterns. The cats orient toward and spend more time near individuals in the final stages of life. Researchers speculate the mechanism may be olfactory, that metabolic changes alter the body's scent profile in ways cats can detect, though this has not been confirmed in peer-reviewed studies. What is consistent is what the cat does. It moves closer. In the presence of something vulnerable and changing, it moves closer. This is what it does. A cat settles on a book you are trying to read, on a surface you just cleared. It is not trying to frustrate you. It is seeking warmth, both the physical warmth of the object and the social warmth of proximity. You are nearby. The combination registers as exactly right. The cat is not wrong about this. The book can wait. What chose to sit on it is particular and temporary, and will not always be there. Tonight, in this room, your cat's nervous system is running its continuous assessment. The sound of your breathing, the temperature of the air, the familiar scent of the space, the absence of anything that requires a response. And somewhere in its body, something ancient is registering the result. Calm, calm, calm. You don't have to do anything to provide this. You don't have to be more than you are. Your ordinary presence, in your ordinary room, is already what the cat came for. It came for this. A cat is resting. Its body is warm. Its breathing is slow. The room is quiet. The day is finished. It is not thinking about tomorrow. It is not holding anything from yesterday. It is simply here, present in this particular darkness, in this familiar warmth, in this moment that requires nothing of it but to be. A small body, at rest, in a room that has been decided, and so did you. In the body, in the breath, in the choosing, again and again, to stay. We began with a wildcat at the edge of firelight, making one quiet choice. We ended with a paw placed on a sleeping hand, in the dark, without witness. Between those two moments, 10,000 years of the same answer. Your cat doesn't just share your home. It shares your nervous system. Its emotional health is quietly shaped by yours and yours, without either of you deciding it, is shaped by its presence. The bond was never one-directional. It never was. Let yours be heavy now. Let it go wherever it is already going. If sleep comes, let it. The way a cat settles into a place it already knew was home. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting ready to continue the journey. Rest well, sleepy soul. And remember, it chose you, and it is still here. Good night.